Hello people, what's up? I don't even remember when I last recorded my video. It's been so long. And today I was just sitting and I realized tomorrow we go back to office. And this was exactly my face at that point. But yeah, then we also decided कि let's record a video. थोड़ा motivation आएगा कल के लिए. तो चलो let's get started. तो today we'll learn about how to design a key value store. So last time we read about consistent hashing, that's the last video. But today let us see how to design a key value store. Frankly speaking, this chapter I read it a few days before. I revisited today and then I decided maybe I can share it over here. So you can find a very nice, better set of videos at Vihani and all channels would have it. But yeah, just sharing whatever I read through it. So, a key value store is basically a known relational database. So, what exactly it means is that corresponding to each key, you have got a value there. And this data pairing, that for each key, you got a value, this is known as key value pair, okay? So, one might ask, what does a key look like? When I say key, it is not a lock wala key, obviously. So, here the key can be either a string value or a hashed value. The key can be something like storing for a particular user when did he last logged in at this last logged in at, and the value may be a time value 11:54 p.m. something like that. But since it takes a lot of space to store the row values and it's not safer also, so what we essentially do is we store the hashed key. This can be a SHA-1 hash or whatever. Okay. So this chapter mainly focuses on what all you need to think about when you essentially design a key value pair and what all algorithms or what all fundamentals you need to take care about. So when we say about designing a key value pair, what all we need to take care about? We need to take care about the size must be small. The size of each key value pair must be small. You're not here storing the key and a corresponding paragraph to it. Then you should be able to store big data. Then when I would talk about a system, that system should be highly available. This key value pair system, it should be highly scalable. It should be able to support a very large data set. Then it should have a low latency. What I mean by low latency is whenever I access a value corresponding to a key, it should be fast. It should not have a significant time lag. So keeping this design scope in mind, we'll see what all fundamentals need to be taken care of. So when I say single server key value stores, what it means is it's kind of easy. So you need to store all keys and values in a single server, as in keeping everything in memory. And the question that might arise is how are you gonna fit everything into a single server, because there's a lot of data. So that time you talk about data compression algorithms, that you can compress the data and store it. This is very analogical too. You have just one suitcase and you need to store clothes. So what's the way out there? When I say you can't use multiple suitcases, you'll say, okay, I'll take a compression bag, put all the clothes in it and compress that bag. The same thing is something I'm talking about, the data. And the other thing is, since you're storing everything on a single server, you can't keep calling disk every time. So you can maintain some sort of cache, and for the frequently used keys, you can directly call that cache. But that is all when we talk about single server, and we know this doesn't work this way. The data is increasing as in rapidly, and then you deal with distributed systems. So let us better talk about that. So when we talk about distributed system, what we mean is that we have a set of key value pairs, and these are distributed not only on one server, but they are distributed on multiple servers. But when we talk about it, what is the thing that we need to keep in mind? The thing that you need to keep in mind is CAP algorithm. So what is CAP algorithm? CAP algorithm means consistency, availability, and partition tolerance. So what is consistency? So consistency is that when every server, you see the same data at every server, as in at a particular time you query server 1, server 2 or server 3, you will see the same data. As in if you query what the name, everyone will return John. It isn't that someone will return John, other one will return Prisha. Nah. What does availability means? Availability means that at a given time you will be able to get a response. As in, for example, if your data is replicated across n servers, then always there would be a single, at least one server that would be up there to give you a response. What is partition tolerance? Partition tolerance is, suppose you are dealing with three nodes S1, S2, S3, and at a given time S3 goes down, still you will be able to get the response from S1 and S2. The system continues to function. So these are the three things that you need to keep in mind. Consistency का क्या मतलब था? That you see the same data at same time on all the servers. Second, availability, that you would get a response even if some of the nodes get down. Third is partition tolerance, कि despite one of the node getting down, the system still works. Okay. फिर उसके बाद तो what the distributed system says is कि there is max of two things that you can achieve together. At least one thing would be compromised here. So the system can be either CP, it can be either CA, or it can be AP. You know what, the system, when I talk about CA system, this is a very ideal system. So availability means, because why do I say? Because network failures are essentially unavoidable. It is not possible that there won't be any network failure, no node will go down. So availability is something ideal things to talk about. But when we talk about CP, CA, AP, this essentially means a combination of these two. ठीक है? और this is what we talked about, the ideal situation. Ki ideal situation never exists only. In the real world distributed system, you need to either choose about letting go of a server, or because network failure can always occur, you can't prevent that as easy as that. So now it's your preference what you need to focus about. Say someone says I need to focus on, how do I say, consistent. What does consistent means? That N1 should have the same data, N2 should have the same data, and N3 should have the same data. But how would it be possible? For example, what if N3 goes down? Okay, but you need to still make sure that all three of have the same data. Since this is down, you can't allow any writes to N1 and N2. Since you are not allowing any writes, as in you have turned down your system for the time N3 is down, it means your system is not available all the time. So here you are prioritizing consistency over availability. That's what they wrote here exactly. If we choose consistency over availability, you need to block all the write operations to N1 and N2 to avoid data inconsistency, which makes the system unavailable. This can't happen in bank, right? So the banks usually have very high consistent requirement, because it's all related to money. So you're okay that the bank server is down, but you can't afford that you made a bank payment, you query a server, still it shows the same balance. So I mean, you realize how fucked the system is, right? So yeah, so you essentially need to choose the right CAP match that you need. Do you need to prioritize consistency? Do you need to prioritize availability? So it all depends upon what your system works for. ठीक है? So now we'll discuss some core components, some core fundamentals that are used to build a key value system. So first it comes to data partition. Why are we talking about data partition? See, the data is very large. If you talk about any company, you will realize how much data they store. They can't do it on a single server, right? So they need to distribute the data. So the challenge here is, you have multiple servers, you have S1, S2, S3, you have a data D. You need to make sure that the data is distributed equally on all the three servers, on all the N servers. And there might be the case when one of the nodes leaves the system, or another node gets added to the system. In such a case, there should be a minimal movement of data. This we discussed in consistent hashing as well. For example, if my data is distributed over here, here, and here, and one of the server goes down, ideally only this data should be getting distributed to other servers. It should not happen that data that was earlier here and here also, even these servers are up, is also getting redistributed. So that's what they mean, that there should be minimized data movement when the nodes are added or removed. So how this is done? The consistent hashing we have already discussed. How you do that exactly? You place the server on a circular ring, you hash the key, and then you assign key to the server which lies clockwise next to it. For example, here in this algorithm, if you see, key 0 is assigned to server 1 because it lies next to it. And when we talk about data partition, consistent hashing handle this very effectively, because you know that you can add or remove the server automatically. Because whenever you add a server, for example, I add a server, say here S2, only the keys that were between S1 and S2 would be redistributed to S2. So there's a automatic scaling here. And then there's also a concept of heterogeneity. For example, we talked about virtual nodes, right? Why did virtual, see, I'm not explaining the concepts here again, because we already discussed them in consistent hashing. You might go and revisit that. But we discussed about the concept of virtual nodes. Why was it necessary? Because we questioned that each server should have equal amount of data. In order to do that, the servers need to be distributed equally on the ring. So we make virtual nodes corresponding to each server. And suppose if I know that a particular server has more capacity, what I can simply do is I can increase the virtual nodes corresponding to that server. So this is something they talk about heterogeneity. The number of virtual nodes is proportional to the server capacity. For example, the servers with higher capacity would be assigned more virtual nodes. ठीक है? तो what is the next component? Next component is data replication. So in order to achieve high reliability, your data should not just be stored on one server, because what if that particular server goes down? You won't be able to query that server only. So what you make sure is that your data is replicated over n servers. And so how do you choose these n servers exactly? So when we discuss that a key is assigned to the server which is clockwise next to it, so we assign this key to all the n servers that are clockwise next to it. For example, if my replication algorithm is that I'll be replicating on 3 nodes, S1, S on 3 nodes. How do I choose these 3 nodes? I move clockwise from this key 0, and whatever nodes I encounter first, the first n nodes, I choose to replicate the data over there. Now someone might ask, what if, since there are virtual nodes, right? Virtual nodes something like S0, S02, S03. These all essentially represent S0 only. What if when you move in the clockwise direction, you encounter these nodes? That would essentially end up replicating the data on only just one server, that is S0. So when you do so, you make sure that you're talking about unique servers. That's what Alex mentioned here. To avoid this issue, we only choose unique servers while performing the clockwise walk logic. ठीक है, अगले पे चलते हैं हम. Consistency. So now if you want consistent, as in you want your data to be consistent, what you do here is you use the quorum consensus. What it does is that there is a particular W and then there is a particular R value that you fix, that unless and until you get acknowledgement from W nodes, you won't consider a write successful. And unless and until you get acknowledgement from R nodes, you won't consider a read successful. This might be the case that W and R is 1. So that makes the system less consistent because you are just relying on one node. But usually when we talk about a strong consistent system, they make sure that W plus R is greater than N. Why this happens? Because if this is the case, then there would be at least one common node that has the one node that has the latest data. Why? Because if you consider the case, if W plus R is greater than N, both values would be greater than N by 2. Not both, at least one value would be greater than N by 2. If at least one value is greater than N by 2, then this, say one value is N by 2 plus 1, there would be this one common node that would be part of both W and R. That time we see that a system is highly consistent. This condition, a strong consistency is guaranteed. But when W is equal to 1, R is equal to 1, the system response is very high because it just need to wait for the acknowledgement of one node. But when W is equal to N, the write is usually very slow because you have to wait for even the slowest server to give you the acknowledgement that you can write. So when we talk about, so the consistency models can be many. A strong consistent model that the system never sees any out of state data. A weak consistent is basically you may not see the most updated value. Eventual consistency is at time t you might not see the most updated value, but if you wait for some time, the servers will sync with each other and then eventually you will get a consistent system. And one might answer that how is a strong consistent model achieved? How is this achieved is exactly, for example, you for example, there are replicas, there are r1, r2 and r3. There's a write that happened, that is w. So you don't allow any reads or any writes unless and until you get acknowledgement from all of them that they have received the most recent write. So this way you make sure that all your nodes are consistent with each other. This, let us talk about inconsistency resolution. Although when you replicate a data across multiple servers, S1, S2, S3, this ensures you are very clearly doing it. How do you get availability? Because you are pretty sure that even if one of the nodes is down, the other nodes are available to serve you. But this comes at a action of the data getting inconsistent between them, because a client may interact with either of them for a write. It may be that the one client wrote W1 here and other client wrote W2 here. Now this has data, initial data was W, this has W to W1 and the server one has W to W2. But ideally what should have in the case, they should have same data W dash. So there has to be some sort of resolution that comes into the case. This is the example they give here, that if there are nodes N1 and N2, both of them have earlier name John corresponding to the key name. But what happens is server 1 does a write on N1 and updates the name to John San Francisco, and server 2 does a write to N2 and changes the name to John New York. Since both of them happened simultaneously, this led to inconsistency between N1 and N2. But there has to be a way where you are able to identify that the data of the node is inconsistent. So that's where the concept of vector clocks come in. So what is a vector clock? As in, if you have read about distributed system, then this is the first topic you essentially read about, that when there are multiple servers, then you use a vector clocks in order to maintain a consistent state. But let us see how this works over here. So here when we talk about vector clock, it's a vector as in array that contains server and version corresponding to the data. It contains server and the version of that data. So when you have a server and a version, you can essentially check if the data that a particular server has, if it precedes, is it ancestor of the data that the other one has. That will allow you to check if there is inconsistency between the data. So this is how you represent a vector clock. You represent for a data D, you represent it at S1 V1 S2 V2. Either D is the data, V1 is the version counter, or S is the server number. So whenever you write a data item to a server SI, what you need to essentially do is you first check, does a version exist in SI? Like has there been any write to the SI before? If no, you update SI to SI, 1 because first write has been done. If there has already been a write to SI, as in some client has already written data to SI, then you just increment the version number, that is SI, 2. And since you know that there are multiple servers, if for a server you detect a version number which is less than this version, you would certainly know that there is some set of write that is not done here. I hope this is clear. But let us understand it with this situation. So what happened here is, I'll just write the algo here parallelly. So what happens here is, here's a client, it writes a data item D1 to the system. And let us assume there are, okay, थोड़ा clear कर देते हैं इसे, थोड़ा खराब रखा है जो, हाँ. So let us assume that there are multiple servers SX, SY and SZ. So now a client comes and it writes a data T. This is the first time it writes it to SX. So what we will do is D1, the data version is D1, it is written to SX, so we will just do SX, 1. Okay, so this is what that has happened here. Now another client comes, it reads the data D1 from the system and it says, okay, I need to update it to D2. And what it does is, like, it updates it to D2 and writes it back. So D2 is essentially an override of D1. Say the earlier name was John, the other name is John Smith. So this is D2 and this is D1. So what will happen is, since let us assume that this also happened on the same server, so the state would look something like D2 SX, 2. Why SX, 2? Because when D2 came, it checked if SX already has a version number associated with it. It already had one write, so it just updated the version count here. Now the another client comes in, it updates the data D2 to D3 and then writes it back. So now it might be possible that he didn't write it to server X, he wrote it to server Y. And now since D3, the data D3 sees, or the client who wrote data D3 sees as SY doesn't have any version, so he sets SY to 1. So what does the state of the system looks like? State of the system looks like SX, 2, SY, 1. These are tuples. I hate my handwriting one. So this is the state of the system. It looks something like SX, 2, SY, 1. This is the state of the system. Okay, here. And simultaneously another client came and he wrote the data to the Z node instead. So the state of the system for him becomes SX, 2, SZ, 1. Because he would not see SY, 1. Why he would not see S1, 1? Because by it happened simultaneously. And now the another client comes, he reads the data. Now the another client comes, he reads the data D3 and D4, and then he realized, okay, there is a conflict. Why is there a conflict? He realized he gets to know that there is a data item. There is a data item that is both modified by SY and SZ. He resolves the conflict and he comes to the state finally because he writes to SX, so they have updated the counter of SX. So when the other client reads D3 and D4, it discovers a conflict which is caused by D2 being modified by Y and Z. It is resolved since the write is handled by SX, so the state becomes this. So the point here is, how do you detect that there was a conflict? So you get to know about a version. You get to know about the version of the system because when you compare two vector clocks, and if for a particular server its version is more than this version, if version is more than this version, you realize that this is ancestor. This preceded it. Using vector clocks, it is easy to tell that version X is ancestor of version Y if the version counters is greater than or equal to version X. For example, if you see about this one and this one, this is ancestor because S1 has one more write. So therefore there is no conflict. This is just ancestor of it. But when do you find that there is a conflict? The conflict happens in the siblings. So essentially, suppose this was the state of the system. A data item D was written. So S0 had version 1 and S1 also had version 1. Now a client comes, two clients come, client C1 and client C2. Client C1 writes the data onto S0, so the version increases to S0, 2 and S1 remains at 1. Parallelly, client 2 writes it to S1, so the version here becomes 2. So when you compare these two vector clocks, you see that for the same server, the version here is less than this one. So that's when you detect a conflict. So that's how you see that there's a conflict. But the issue here is that it kinda adds the vector clocks, this introduction of vector clocks kinda adds complexity to the system because this keeps on adding on over time. Like these number of tuples keep on adding on. So now, given that we now know that how we detect conflict, the very important part here is what if a server goes down? How do you detect the server is failed? So how it actually happens is if there are multiple servers S1, S2, S3, they all multicast to each other. What I meant by multicast, at a particular timestamp T, each node sends some sort of heartbeat to other nodes that serves as a proof that I am alive. So server 1 at regular interval would send heartbeat to S2 and S3. That heartbeat would look something like S1, T. What it means is server 1 has sent a vector clock that says I am alive at time T. Now in order to detect if a server has gone down, so what the node particular does is at a particular time T dash, it searches for the heartbeat that it has received from S1. Say S3 is determining which node is dead. So S3 checks when or did I receive heartbeats. If the time is T dash right now, it says, oh, So last time I received the heartbeat from S1 was at time t. If t dash minus t is greater than a threshold, then it can declare a node as dead after verifying from other nodes. How does it verify from other nodes? It sends a message to other nodes, more like a gossip protocol. Did you receive a heartbeat from S1? So if there is some node who might have received heartbeat from S1 at a time greater than t, then it won't compute that it is dead, right? So that is a gossip protocol here. So each node maintains a membership list, it contains member ID and heartbeat. So each node increments its own heartbeat counter, set it to this and send it to the set of member nodes. If the heartbeat for a particular node has not increased for a predefined period, it declares the membership to dead. Okay. So now how do you handle temporary failure? How do you handle exactly is for the time being, for example, S2 has got dead. So what will happen is all the writes or the reads that are directed to S2 will be redirected to S3, and once the S2 gets back to the server, S3 will update the state of S2. So in a very abstract form, what happens is you detect the S2 is dead. How do you detect S2 is dead? You don't receive any heartbeat from it, or you don't receive heartbeat for a significant time. So temporarily all the reads and writes are handled by S3, and when S2 comes back, S3. So this is known as handoff. More of how do you say handoff, handing off the task to S3. But it might be possible that S2 has gotten permanently dead. In that case, the hinted handoff would not work. So it is very important to detect that this particular node has gone off. So there comes the concept of Merkle tree. To each server, corresponding to the data that is stored in each server, you build a hash tree corresponding to that. And now if you need to compare if these two set of nodes S1 and S2 have same data, you kinda compare their Merkle tree rather than iterating through each key value pair to see where it differs. So what you do is you make the hash of the keys. And you form a tree out of it. You start comparing from the root node. If there is even difference in one node corresponding to each tree, as in even if one of the node is different, this will get propagated up the tree and this will lead to different hashes of them. This will give you a guarantee that okay, these two servers are inconsistent and one of them has failed or whatever. Okay. So this is the case here. Server 1, server 2 has gone down. This doesn't has a value here. So when you build a tree, this hash value changes upwards, and here only you realize okay, this particular key has gone down. Why Merkle tree is important? Because you need not iterate through all the key value pair in order to identify which key has gone down. So if there are set of 12 keys, you divide them into buckets, then hash them into nodes the way you form it here, and then moment when you iterate you get to know which bucket has led to a different hash value. For example, here when you would be iterating this key from the root hash only, you would realize that the version is inconsistent, but now to track down which node caused it, you just keep on iterating through the tree, more like a BFS thing, and you come to know which key has gone wrong. Okay. Now handling data center outages. So there's a coordinator. So now coordinator, in order to reply to the client, receive acknowledges from the nodes that are up and that are available. So the concept of W and R that we have read, if at least W nodes give acknowledgement, it allows the client to do a write, and if at least R node gives acknowledgement, it allows the client to do a read. So this leads to a very decentralized set of system. The nodes have responsibility to acknowledge read, to acknowledge write. So in a very abstract terms, what does a write path look like? So the client sends a write request to a server. This complete is a server. So the data that the client wants to write D, it is stored to memory cache. Once there is a significant data that you have got to write, you flush it all to SS table. SS table store it in the term of key value pair. So because every time a client sends a write operation, you won't directly keep calling the SS table, right? Because it's costly. So you wait for a certain number of writes to come and then you flush them all in. Same goes in read. Client query server to do a read. If it finds the key is in cache, it directly returns from the cache. If it doesn't find the key in the cache, it queries the SS table that is there. But now in order to know which key is stored in which SS table, there's a concept of Bloom filter that comes in that essentially tells you which SS table to query for which key. And SS table returns you the result of data. So overall, if you realize what have we all read through, we have read through the concept of key value pair. What is a key value pair? Then we went through key cap algorithm. Key at most two of them can come into place. Then we understood about how do you store the data on multiple servers? What happens when a node becomes dead? Hinted handoff occurs. What happens if there's a permanent failure? You use a Merkle tree to detect a permanent failure. And in between, I guess we also went through this particular thing, कि what is the concept of vector clock, how do you determine the inconsistencies in the system, why the concept of versioning. We understood the concept of W and R, ki at least W nodes need to acknowledge, at least R nodes need to acknowledge to ensure consistency. We went through consistency models, what is a strong consistency system, what's a weak consistency system, and what's eventual consistency system. Strong was ki every time you query you get a same set of data, as in the data is consistent among all nodes. Weak consistencies, someone might return you stale data. And eventual consistencies, at a particular time t you might not get the perfect data, but after a certain time delta t the nodes will sync with each other, and then they will give you the latest data. uh, this complete chapter was kinda heavy, kinda complex, and I know I might not have explained it in that nice way, because first reason is कि मैंने भी इसे थोड़े दिन पहले ही पढ़ा है, and I might not have that much clarity onto things, but I just tried to explain whatever I understood. And the second being, I'm making video after a really long time, so that might have taken a little troll here. But let me know if you have any doubts in the comment. I love to answer them or think through them. And just to make sure I make the next video, I'll just tell here what I'll be teaching. We'll learn about, what is the chapter about? We'll design a unique ID generator. Even I don't know what is happening here, but we'll design a unique ID generator. Chalo, bye bye people, good day, take care.